Hello, everyone, and welcome to A to Y Dyslexia live show. Actually, this is not a live show. Let me just make sure that I've got this one right. It's actually been pre-recorded, but welcome to our show anyway. And what we will do is obviously share it on all our social media platform. Now, we are speaking today to one most amazing author who is based in India. I think she is actually based in, Mumbai. That's right. And she is an author, a mother, who was really inspired by her son's dyslexia to actually write a book about the condition. Now, we all know that dyslexia is not one of those subjects that's spoken around the dining table, particularly within the BAME community. And when I reached out to PH, Pinky, her name is, on LinkedIn, I was so happy and so excited that she could actually join us all the way from Mumbai to speak about dyslexia, her experience, her challenges, and the first time she heard about dyslexia and the sort of what sort of prompted her to go and do more research. And now she advocates for dyslexics where she lives. So today's title is Dyslexia I'm Thoughting, is the word. Now, one might think, why I'm thoughting? And do you know what? The best person to explain this to us is PH. Now, PH, welcome to HY Dyslexia. I would say live show because it's actually, although it's been pre-recorded, it is still live for people to watch. Hello, how are you, PH? How do you pronounce your surname?
Well, that's Acharya. And Acharya in India, or rather in India, means teacher. So.
Oh, excellent. That's amazing. It's such a pleasure to speak to you or to meet you. I know social media is doing amazing things. One of the places we met was LinkedIn, and I would always say to people, I swear by that LinkedIn. It's such an amazing platform for businesses, in the third sector, charities, no matter what your field are, it's such a great place to meet and obviously bring all our expertise and goals that we're all aspiring for together. Now, when I reached out to you, I knew that you weren't in the UK, you're in Mumbai. And I just thought it would be so great to actually have you on our live show and speak about dyslexia, because I know it's a subject that BAME particularly, we don't engage or speak about around the dining table or as a conversation in general. Now, I can't generalize. I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, but I do know that within my community, it's such a challenge for anyone to even understand what the condition is. Now, before we start, and before I get you to speak, I'm going to read a little bit about you, and then you can tell our viewers and listeners about yourself or about the dyslexia in general. So PH Acharya is certified life coach. I think I've got here, is it durotherapist? I can't say that word. Say it for me.
Sorry, it's a graphotherapist.
You see, I knew it. I knew I'd get it all muddled up. I've been practicing it all day. I have been practicing it all day. I thought, I better get that wrong. It's the way it's kind of written, and I'm like, I can't pronounce that. But hey, here we are. Now, part of my dyslexia is pronunciation, and it is words.
So
and I never really.
Don't worry. I will take it over if you cannot pronounce it. I'm there.
Exactly. I never really apologize for it because it is so real and it is what it is. And I think when I can't pronounce the word and I get all stumbled up over a word, for me, I just see it as, look, that's the condition. That is what it is. I can't beat myself for it. But anyway, go on with your title, so or your biography. So you're author, social impact mentor, a mother of two opposite personalities based in Mumbai. She works with individuals, multinational companies, and not-for-profit organizations alike. She has recently been conferred with the Indian Achievers Award at recognition for her professional and perseverance towards social causes. Now, that's absolutely phenomenal. Her most recent book, I'm Thoughting, reveals details of her most exalting, I can't say a word, it's a massive word here. I'm not going to be bothered to pronounce that one. The most gratifying journey of raising a child with dyslexia and ADHD. PH, welcome to HY Dyslexia live show. Tell me a bit about yourself and why you embarked on this amazing journey. Can you hear me?
So
Hello,
I
PH, can you hear
can
me?
now. Actually, there were little gaps. I can hear you now. Can you hear me too? Yeah, there
I
were
can,
some
yes,
gaps in
of
the
course I can.
conversation, so I was just wondering if
Okay, so all yours now. Tell us a bit about yourself and why have you embarked on this journey? There's a personal story, isn't it, as to why you wrote your book.
yeah. Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So for a moment things were frozen. So I'm back again, and you'd asked me to introduce myself. Elizabeth, you've already done a lot about introducing me. So I will still take it through. As you said, I pride myself on the fact that I'm a mother to two, a 22-year-old who works for social impact, and an 18-year-old boy who's the reason why I'm on this dyslexic platform. Apart from that, I'm a life coach, an executive coach, and I am a graphotherapist. Now, since you stopped at that word, graphotherapy is when I do handwriting analysis to understand the character behind it. And that is a huge, huge help when I'm doing coaching. The other thing is that I'm an author, as you mentioned, and with 3 books in my kitty, and all 3 of them have been written with the reason of creating impact for people going through similar journeys. So the first one was released in 2014 called Tat Tvam Asi, which is Sanskrit for "You're a drop in the ocean." And they are my memoirs. They are things, it speaks of incidences which have impacted my life. The second one, which is called Bald is Beautiful, is my journey through cancer. And it's not available on any e-platforms because it goes out pro bono to people who I counsel, especially cancer patients. And the book, which was released during the COVID in 2020, is called I Am Thoughting, which is of interest to this platform because that is what me, my family went through with our son who is diagnosed dyslexic and ADHD. So I'm sure you've read it, Elizabeth. And as you would know, it's a book laden with emotions. It's a book which speaks from the heart. It's one which will tell you about the trials, the journey, the ups and downs, the joys and sorrows, and all those frustrations in between. But it's been absolutely beautiful doing what I do. And apart from that, I love mentoring. Yeah, I am extremely passionate about doing NGO sphere work, wherein I mentor teens from the lower strata and I mentor cancer patients. So that's where I am. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for such an amazing introduction. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing in Mumbai. I think it's really, really important that we come together as, individuals around the world and share our experiences of dyslexia because, you and I know that it's not very well spoken about. There is still a long way to go with awareness of dyslexia, particularly within the BAME communities. And it's such a pleasure to have you today. I'm going to dive straight to my first question. Now, how did your life change when you received your son's dyslexia diagnosis? How was it for you?
Yeah. So initially, when I got the diagnosis, like most mothers or most parents who are completely unaware what this term encapsulates and what it means, for me, it was a jolt out of the blue because there was no precedent. There is no history to tell me how or what path to take or what's the way forward. So I would say initially the emotions were of fear, of concern, of being indecisive, of absolute uncertainty. And thereafter, what grips one as a mom is a feeling of being possessive, a feeling of trying to just protect because you do not want people to think otherwise. So, how one is making excuses for academic falls. Everything looked okay till he was in the primary section, and there wasn't much, there were no telltale signs. So, there wasn't much I would want to do. And also a belief which said that, oh, he's a boy, men mature much later, I'll get around there. This bubble broke by the time he was 10. And that's when I realized that I will have to learn. I will have to accept, I will have to speak to practitioners, and I will have to evolve with him. We will have to find ways of teaching him in which he can learn. We will have to make life and education simpler for him. Uh, and so that's the stage when work took a back seat. And if you're asking me how things changed, I think I just became a mommy throughout that, because it's twice the amount of effort that one puts in when you're raising a special needs child.
So, had you heard of the word dyslexia prior to your son being diagnosed? Did you know much about this condition and ADHD?
Right. Yes. So, Elizabeth, I had heard about these words, but when it's not something that's entering your backyard, you are like, it's okay. It means children who are probably weaker, not that motivated, need a little bit more to get there. And so that's the bubble I was in till I realized that, all right, I have somebody at home who's going to need help.
So, is there any dyslexia within your family? Because according to research, dyslexia is known as a genetic condition. Is there anybody in your family that's got dyslexia?
Yes. So it wasn't ever diagnosed, but my husband, the moment we got Krishna's analysis and assessments, he said, you know what? I do think I could be there. I may have been there, because I remember that a whole period of 45 minutes, any subject, I would zone out. I had no clue what was happening. So I would put it as maybe he was, but we're talking about 40 years back, when there wasn't that kind of assessment happening. For that matter, there wasn't that kind of awareness happening.
Yeah. So, in
So,
other words,
yeah.
when your son was diagnosed, a new door opened, and I think as a parent, the first thing you're saying is, "Look, I need to get help for him," and especially if you've got two children as well, and one is different from the other, and you're thinking, not that you would ever compare your children anyway, but you're probably thinking, "Well, hang on a minute, what's going on here?" Isn't it? So, how was that situation for you? How was it for you looking at both kids and thinking, hmm,
Yeah. So initially, I would say that I was completely distraught, because my daughter happens to have all the requirements of being a genius and extremely high IQ, and you suddenly have another child who seems to be completely from another planet. So, whereas I would expect my daughter to do extremely well, which she did, for me, even if Krishna did the most basic, the most rudimentary things, I was elated, because I realized slowly that they just they don't seem to be from the same set of parents. So, as I said, it's a shock. It's something which takes a whole lot of patience, time, and time is the a healer. I really believe that it takes a lot of time to understand that. Let's not compare. We are talking to
absolutely.
chalk and we're talking to two different personalities. And that doesn't make the child dumb. That just makes the child who learns differently. Are we able to teach differently? Is the question.
Absolutely. Now, your
Yeah.
book just popped up as we're speaking. Our producer has just put your book up, and I just love the title because it's something I would say. Instead of saying, "Look, I'm just thinking about something," I'll probably say, "Look, I'm just thoughting." And I just love the title of it. And in fact, I have read the online version that you sent me, but I'm actually going to get a hard copy as well because I'm one of these people that love to just highlight, fold the book, and just make sure that, the book is exactly. I can do what I want with a book, can't I? So definitely, though, I'm gonna order one today sometime just to add to my bookshelf and set myself a goal to read all my books. I set myself a goal, 2 books in a month. So bit challenging, but we'll see how I go with that. Yeah, that is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for telling me that the understanding of when you find out your son's got dyslexia. Now, how or what is dyslexia awareness like in India? What is it like in India?
Well, I would say the conversation around neurodivergent on the whole of the community is very, very nascent. I mean, say maybe in the past 20 years, there is some kind of awareness that has been created. Yeah. Now, what happens, especially with a dyslexic child, because they do not have any physical traits to show that they are dyslexic. You do not see any deformities. This child who is a non-performer immediately becomes a delinquent, becomes somebody who's not towing the line, which is disastrous, because in India, what happens is families are extremely involved, and extremely, they respect education a lot. So when that happens and the child, according to them, doesn't function in the atypical way of studies, of scoring marks, etc., there is always a resistance to the fact that is he different, which leads to no assessment. When there is no assessment, the child is just trudging along life, hoping to make it, not to mention with words that tell him that he's just a slow learner. And we don't know if you'll get there. And I have seen children with a lot of emotional grievances who are no more children. There's a mention of one person also who's much older, and he realized, I think he's a doctor, yeah, and he realized much later in life that he falls into that category. And all that he went through because he didn't go through the assessments. He didn't have help when he needed it. So as far as India is concerned, as I said, we are very nascent. We are just kind of entering into that zone very, very recently. And in fact, autism, global development delays, things that are obvious, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, they probably have way more provisions from the government than dyslexics do. Under the government, the government recognizes dyslexia as a disability for which we get a certificate. That certificate ensures that the child during his exams gets like a 25% more time than the total, gets a scribe, gets a calculator, or gets an exemption. And that's a very structured thing that India has done. But the ad hoc thing that happens back at home is the moment we know that we have a special child, a school is requested, and there is something called a resource room, wherein the child is explained a topic or a subject by an older, a more senior teacher. Like, mind you, it's not always a specially trained teacher. It is a senior teacher with years of experience and patience who's explaining it all over to the child. So, and even as far as workforce is concerned, I mean, just diving it a little deeper, the government has mandated that only 2% of the workforce in a public organization needs to have disability representation. So it's not encompassing over the private companies. Now, having said that, we are the privileged lot, Elizabeth. We are the ones who can afford tuition. We are the ones who can afford to go to a school which has a resource room. We are the ones who can afford assessment. When we talk about the remote areas of India, the villages, the tribals, we're talking about children and families who are regularly trying to deal with malnutrition, low-income households, lack of social interaction, and to expect these kids to really flourish in a very structured setup with very structured ways of even learning, I think is a tall order. So if I could just take this further, I would love to see my country firstly creating awareness, like really in the interiors. Assessment would be a great thing to have. Diminishing the taboo that it takes in, like it cannot be a hushed word anymore, and making provisions both at the education level and also for employment. Yeah, that's
Right.
what I
Yeah.
wanted to be ultimately. Yeah.
And how far off are you from that? From what you just said, how is the government, doing anything about that in India? How far? I mean, I don't know. Give me some
No.
statistics here. How many?
Yeah, tell me. Sorry.
I was going to say, what's the percentage of people who are unemployed due to dyslexia in India, or the percentage of people who have got dyslexia assessment, let's say? Would you have figures for that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have those statistics, frankly, but what I've spoken to you about is absolutely the most recent laws, the most recent things that anyone will endorse. But frankly, I know it for a fact that there is a divide. There is an obvious divide when they do make out that it's a special person there, So as I said, what I would love, and it's a dream. I don't know how soon or how fast, but what I would love is when every special needs person is taken in because of their special qualities and not because they lack, because they do not lack. They just
Mm.
are little different and they will deliver differently. That's it. I would love it if they could, give them places of authority, if they could command that seat, and where it's not just tokenism. It's not like just a feel good for the organization that look there, we've hired. It should be where their decisions matter, what they are saying matters, and yeah, that's a dream. I don't know when, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It might come to pass. Dreams come true, and it's one day at a time, isn't it? And obviously, the more awareness we create, and the more sort of information there is out there, then obviously, the more we can support people. And it does start from obviously the education department, workplace, and also the individual being open about it. Is there many people that
Yeah.
talk about dyslexia? Do you know? Have you met many people in Mumbai that would openly have a conversation about dyslexia?
Well, the thing is, my dear, that once we know we are in that sphere, we are a part of that community. One will go towards that community, right? Like attracts like. So there will be people who will now openly talk about dyslexia. There will be dyslexia groups. There'll be only dyslexia platforms. There will be parents who try to connect on social media to raise their concerns, and how they get what's the way forward. So but the thing is, it's such a tightly knit community bound thing, right? One is aware that you belong here, and so you go towards that. Because, and just as I mentioned, 2007 saw the release of a mainstream Hindi movie, which is probably the first ever dive into dyslexia. That movie spoke about dyslexia. And because we tend to glamorize a little as to what a dyslexic can do,
Mm,
I think after that, a lot of mothers were taking pride in the fact that their children were dyslexic.
right.
So you know how the tables turn, because then suddenly you feel that, oh, it's they have a special talent, which is going to be worth talking about.
Absolutely. What's the title of that movie?
It's called
What's the?
Tare Zameen Par. Okay,
You might
so
have to spell. Yeah.
Tare Zameen Par. So Tare means stars. So when the stars come onto the earth, and there is a mention in my book, because as luck would have it, and this is really a providence, my daughter was auditioning for a role in the movie.
Oh wow. Yeah.
It's really funny. She was auditioning, and that's when I didn't even know that Krishna was dyslexic. He was 3. I didn't diagnose him till he was 5.5. So she was auditioning. She got the role, and I have actually mentioned how Krishna behaved at 3 in the office as his sister was in the recording room, and the havoc he created. Because not only was he dyslexic, we're talking about a hyper child. He was ADHD.
Yeah.
A
Yeah. Yeah.
very loving hyper child, but the kind of child who was all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and oh God, this is so beautiful, and it just struck me. The movie was released on Krishna's birthday. It's uncanny. I said, yeah, okay. So that's the precursor I had, baby, to tell me that he's going to be special too.
Wonderful. How old is your son now? How old is he?
He's 18. He's 18. He's going to give his 12th, and he's very passionate about coding and gaming, and he's got into a university, just what he wants.
Excellent. It just goes to show that once you go for the help, or if you do recognize dyslexia, one can literally break down doors
Sure.
and make it,
Sure.
and that's why we hammer on about, people going to find out the help. I mean, when you've got dyslexia, no one has to tell you. I know your son was young. As a mum or as a parent, you knew something wasn't right. Now, I knew something wasn't right, but I only got diagnosed at the age of 34. For me, it was
Yeah.
dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, which is the maths bit, was only like 2 years ago. I got diagnosed for it. And
Mhm.
sometimes I get really upset and I get really annoyed that things were kind of just left. But it's because I just didn't know, and nor did my parents. And that's why having a platform like this is really important, so people can sort of resonate with some of the things we're talking about right now, and go and seek the help they need. Because you and I know, PH, that dyslexia can either make you or break you.
Break you. Sure.
Right. Now, the
Sure.
in between is, look, finding the help, getting the help you need, and excelling to the best that you can. It is a hidden condition, and it can be really frustrating sometimes. Now, like you said, there's nothing that you can't look at a dyslexic person and say, oh, actually, they've got dyslexia or ADHD. You're not going to know that, because there's nothing that actually sticks out until we're put in a space where we have to perform, i.e., in education or in a workplace. Now, PH, that's amazing. I love the way the work you're doing in Mumbai, the awareness that you're spreading. Your book, I want to talk about your book. Tell me about your book, and tell me why we should all rush out and go and get it. Now, tell me a little bit about your book. Yeah.
All right. Firstly, I'll talk about the title because you mentioned it and how it caught your attention. So, I Am Thoughting happens to be Krishnav's words when he was maybe just 4. And I asked him a question. And this boy, instead of tapping his temples, is putting his forefinger into his ear and telling me, Mama, I'm thoughting. And I never got an answer to that. But the hilarious thing is, I said, this is a double whammy. The sentence is wrong, and he's planning to think from his ears instead of his brains. So that's clue enough, And that title stuck. So if you go through the book, Elizabeth, there are gems from Krishna. We call them English gems because he's completely converted the language, and he speaks the way he wants. Why did I write the book would be of importance. As I said, all my books are my expressions. They are my desire to be heard. They are out there to help a mother or a parent understand that they are not alone. And if we don't speak up, we don't get help. If we don't make a community, we don't get help. If you're going to keep it under wraps and be embarrassed about it, not only are we not getting help, we are marring the child's psychology to a great extent.
Absolutely.
And
sorry, PH. Sorry, I interrupted you there. Go on.
I was thinking I'll just read out the preface to let you know why I wrote this book. Yeah, would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah.
I Am Thoughting is my attempt to put forth a single testimony on what it's like to raise a child with specific learning disabilities. Parenting is a precarious game, and no one has the rule book. Through trial and error, we somehow manage to bring in the new generation, sometimes thriving, sometimes scarred, and quite often both. Trying to figure out how and how much to parent is a boundless experiment. Experimenting with my son, well, let's just say I felt like a mad scientist. How do you maintain your balance? How do you exercise good judgment in a moment of immediacy? How do you make peace with failing time-bound improvements? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? I don't know, but I can tell you what I did when faced with these questions. I had not intended to write a book about him when he was born. So my memories with Krishna, as memories usually go, are at times hazy. I have done my best to reconstruct every anecdote with utmost accuracy and authenticity. With these threads I've collected from the far corners of my brain, I've tried to knit a little gift for the reader, a shawl of sorts, you would say. Disabilities are, well, disabling. But disabilities lie on a spectrum of dashed lines. Mobility and improvement is not impossible. I'd like to think of this shawl as a light something to wrap around when times get tough. It won't take away the cold, no, but it's something to remind you that warm mornings do come around. So in the name of warm mornings, thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that, PH. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. You're doing great, amazing work in Mumbai. Continue with what you're doing. All our viewers who are watching at the moment, I'm thoughting, can't even say that right now. go out there and get your book. Can we have this in? Does it come in audible? Is it can you get it in audio form?
No, it's not yet audio. Yeah, I would
Right,
love to do it though, but it's not yet an audiobook.
right. You're
Yeah.
doing such amazing work, really fantastic. Now, just before we wrap up and go, do you have any advice for a parent who is in Mumbai at the moment in India, who is struggling with a child who's got dyslexia, or a parent who's watching at the moment, doesn't
Sure.
matter where they are? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, so I could tell you what I did out of personal experience. I won't call it advice. That's what I grew into. The first and foremost thing, as I mentioned, do not compare your children, or do not compare your special kid to someone else, because you're genuinely comparing chalk and cheese. It's detrimental to the child and it's not helping anyone. That's foremost. Secondly, specifically in India, I would say schools and teachers, though with their best intentions, can do as much. But education begins at home and learning ends there too. We as mothers have to be extra vigilant, and try. We need to definitely we need to go that extra mile if we need to see them succeed. And frankly, the most important one is develop your patience. You'll need loads of it, because there will be anger, there'll be frustration, there'll be feelings of complete helplessness. So, patience is the key. And please allow yourself to grow as your child grows. That's complete personal experience. I feel I have grown tremendously along with my son. He's helped me imbibe those things which I wouldn't have had he just been any other child. And also, as an afterthought, I think all mothers who have, dyslexic kids should take time off. It's so important. I have seen some moms, especially in India, who feel that if you have a special child, you need to be all over the place. You need to constantly monitor, which leads to palpitations at all points of time, and you're really doing nobody a favor, neither the child nor you. So take your breaks, be happy, and completely enjoy the journey, because there are some absolutely fantastic moments to it too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, PH. What a wonderful and beautiful way to end our conversation on all things dyslexia. I wish you all the success and everything you're doing in Mumbai regarding dyslexia and specific learning difficulties, i.e., ADHD. Well done for the amazing work you do. We will advertise your book on all our social media platform. I'm literally about to order my copy now. And obviously, I'll give you feedback on Amazon after reading it. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Mumbai, and keep up the good work. The name of the movie is great. If you can share it with us and type it for us, so we can add it to the link when we share the obviously the video later on. Is it subtitled? Is the film subtitled in any way?
My feeling is it should be now.
Of
That should be
course. Yeah,
available for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
sure. So
Thank you, Pinky.
thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me here. And before we end, I want to congratulate you for the amazing work that you're doing. Keep inspiring, keep motivating. We do need more people in this sphere who take it up onto themselves to make a difference. So thank you so much for having me. It was as much of a pleasure for me to be here as I'm sure for you too. And we'll see you soon, on the other
Hopefully.
side of this video.
On the other side, of course, yes. Thank you, PH. Keep up the good work. And you're one
Thank you
awesome
so
lady. All the best. Yeah. Thank you for our viewers
much.
for joining us today. If you've got any comments at all, anything you want to share, please do drop us a message and we will try our best to answer and get back to you. You can visit hydyslexia.org.uk. You can also visit PH website, and obviously follow her on all her social media platform, and together we can bring change. Thank you for watching. See you next time, same place. Bye bye for now.